The moment you clicked on this video, something shifted in the quantum field around you. Not metaphorically, literally. Your consciousness just collapsed, a wave of infinite possibilities into this singular reality where you're about to discover why every manifestation technique you've tried has failed to create lasting change. Why you can visualize your dream life with perfect clarity yet wake up in the same circumstances day after day. Why you feel so close to breakthrough yet somehow always find yourself back at square one. Here's what nobody tells you about quantum shifting, timeline jumping, and reality creation. The reason it's not working isn't because you lack faith or because you're doing the techniques wrong. It's because there's a part of you operating in the shadows of your consciousness that's sabotaging every attempt you make to elevate your reality. Carl Jung called this the shadow, and until you face it, integrate it, and transform your relationship with it, you'll remain trapped in the same energetic loops regardless of how many vision boards you create or affirmations you repeat. Most people approaching quantum mechanics and consciousness think they can bypass their psychological depths and leap straight into timeline shifting. They believe they can think their way into a new reality while completely ignoring the unconscious programming that's been running their life for decades. But quantum physics reveals something profound about consciousness and reality creation that changes everything. The observer doesn't just collapse the wave function through conscious intention. The observer collapses it through their entire energetic signature, including the parts they're not aware of, the parts they've rejected, and the parts they've been running from their entire lives. Your shadow isn't some mystical concept or new age fluff. It's the collection of all the aspects of yourself that you've deemed unacceptable, pushed down, or refused to acknowledge. It's every emotion you were told was wrong, every desire you learned to suppress, every part of your authentic nature that didn't fit into the acceptable boxes society created for you. And here's the quantum reality that will blow your mind. That rejected energy doesn't disappear, it doesn't dissolve into nothingness. It continues to operate from the unconscious levels of your being, broadcasting a frequency that directly contradicts your conscious desires. Think about it this way. You're trying to manifest abundance while harboring unconscious shame about money. You're visualizing perfect health while carrying suppressed rage in your cellular memory. You're affirming self-love while secretly believing you're fundamentally flawed. The quantum field receives all these signals simultaneously, and it responds to the strongest, most consistent frequency you're broadcasting. Usually that's not your conscious mind's 20 minutes of morning meditation. It's your unconscious programming running on autopilot for 23 hours and 40 minutes every day. This is why people can follow every manifestation protocol perfectly and still experience the same patterns repeating in their lives. They're trying to override decades of unconscious conditioning with surface-level techniques. But the quantum field doesn't respond to what you're trying to broadcast. It responds to what you actually are broadcasting. And what you're actually broadcasting includes your shadow. Jung understood something that modern manifestation teachers miss entirely. He recognized that wholeness, not perfection, is the key to psychological and spiritual development. When you reject parts of yourself, you fragment your energy. When you fragment your energy, you create internal contradictions that show up as external chaos. But when you integrate your shadow, when you reclaim the disowned aspects of yourself, you become coherent. And coherence is the most powerful manifestation state that exists. But shadow work isn't what most people think it is. It's not about dwelling in your trauma or becoming obsessed with your darkness. It's about recognizing that every aspect of yourself, even the ones you've labeled as negative, contains essential life force energy that belongs to your wholeness. Your anger might contain your power. Your sadness might hold your capacity for deep compassion. Your fear might be protecting something precious that needs honoring rather than eliminating. The shadow often forms in childhood when we learn which parts of ourselves are acceptable and which parts result in rejection, punishment, or withdrawal of love. A child who's told that anger is bad will split off from their natural aggression, pushing it into the unconscious where it operates in distorted ways. A child who learns that their sensitivity makes others uncomfortable will develop a false self that appears strong while their authentic vulnerability remains hidden. These survival adaptations made perfect sense at the time, but they create energetic fragmentation that blocks quantum coherence. Here's where it gets fascinating from a quantum perspective. When you have unconscious shadow material operating in your field, you're essentially running two different programs simultaneously. Your conscious mind is trying to create one reality while your unconscious shadow is creating another. This creates what physicists call destructive interference, where the waves cancel each other out instead of amplifying. You end up with mixed results, partial manifestations, or experiences that start well but somehow always collapse. But when you begin to integrate your shadow, something extraordinary happens. Instead of destructive interference, you create constructive interference. All aspects of your being begin working together, amplifying your creative power exponentially. Your conscious desires align with your unconscious motivations. Your light integrates with your darkness. Your accepted self reunites with your rejected self. This integration doesn't make you perfect. It makes you whole. And wholeness is infinitely more powerful than perfection. The process of shadow integration begins with honest self-observation without judgment. You start noticing the patterns in your life that repeat regardless of your conscious efforts to change them. The relationships that follow similar dynamics, the financial situations that mirror each other, the health challenges that resurface, the career obstacles that feel eerily familiar. These patterns aren't random. They're your shadow speaking, trying to show you what needs attention and integration. Most people approach their patterns with resistance, trying to force them to change or eliminate them entirely. But shadow work requires a different approach. It requires curiosity instead of judgment, compassion instead of criticism, investigation instead of immediate transformation. When you can look at your patterns and ask, what is this trying to teach me? What part of myself is trying to be seen and integrated? You begin the alchemical process of turning lead into gold, transforming your greatest challenges into your most powerful assets. Your shadow often contains qualities that your conscious mind has labeled as negative, but that actually hold tremendous creative potential. The person who's suppressed their anger might discover fierce boundaries and unstoppable determination when they reclaim it consciously. The individual who's hidden their vulnerability might find that their sensitivity is actually their greatest gift for connecting with others and creating meaningful change. The one who's rejected their selfishness might realize they need healthy self-advocacy to stop being a doormat and start living authentically. This integration process isn't comfortable. Your ego will resist it because the ego's job is to maintain the identity you've constructed, even if that identity is limiting your potential. Your nervous system will activate because integrating shadow material can feel like psychological death. Your rational mind will create elaborate stories about why you don't need to do this work, why your particular situation is different, why you can manifest without dealing with these deeper layers. But here's what changes everything. The quantum field doesn't care about your comfort zone. It responds to your energetic truth. And your energetic truth includes everything you are, not just the parts you're proud of. When you stop trying to manifest from a fragmented state and start creating from wholeness, the universe can finally deliver what you've been asking for because there's no internal contradiction blocking the flow. The shadow work process reveals something profound about manifestation that most teachers never mention. You're not trying to become someone new. You're trying to remember who you've always been beneath all the conditioning, all the masks, all the strategies you developed to survive and gain approval. Your authentic self, including your shadow, is already perfectly designed to create the life you truly desire. The problem isn't that you need to become worthy or fix yourself. The problem is that you've forgotten your inherent wholeness and power. When you begin integrating your shadow, you'll notice that your manifestation attempts become less effortful and more natural. Instead of trying to force reality to conform to your vision, you start aligning with the version of reality that matches your integrated state. Instead of pushing energy uphill, you find yourself in flow with forces that seem to organize around your authentic expression. This isn't magic, though it can feel magical. It's quantum mechanics operating through a coherent consciousness instead of a fragmented one. The journey of shadow integration isn't a one-time event. It's an ongoing process of reclaiming disowned aspects of yourself as they arise in your awareness. Each integration makes you more whole, more powerful, more capable of sustained manifestation. Each piece of shadow work removes another layer of internal contradiction, allowing your creative force to flow more freely. But shadow work without understanding quantum principles can become an endless psychological excavation that never leads to actual transformation. And quantum manifestation without shadow work remains superficial positive thinking that produces temporary results at best. The real breakthrough happens when you combine both approaches, using quantum understanding to accelerate shadow integration and using shadow integration to achieve quantum coherence. The moment you understand this connection between shadow work and quantum mechanics, everything about manifestation starts to make sense. Because here's what's really happening in those moments when you feel close to breakthrough but somehow always fall back into the same patterns. Your conscious mind reaches for a new timeline, a new possibility, but your unconscious shadow is anchored to familiar territory. It's like trying to quantum jump while carrying invisible chains that keep pulling you back to the starting point. This is why some people can manifest small things easily but struggle with bigger desires. The small manifestations don't threaten the shadow's established identity and survival patterns. But when you try to create something that would fundamentally change your life, your shadow activates its defense mechanisms. It whispers doubt, creates sabotage, manifests obstacles, and generates circumstances that feel like external blocks but are actually internal resistance made manifest. Your shadow doesn't resist change because it's evil or because it wants you to suffer. It resists change because its primary function is to keep you alive, and from the shadow's perspective, the identity you've constructed has kept you alive so far. Why risk that survival by becoming someone new? Your shadow holds every limiting belief you've ever absorbed, every trauma response that once protected you, every fear that kept you safe in dangerous situations. But here's where quantum physics offers us a radical new perspective on psychological healing. In the quantum realm, nothing is ever truly destroyed. Energy transforms, particles exist in multiple states simultaneously, and observation changes reality. When you apply this understanding to shadow work, you realize that you're not trying to eliminate or destroy your shadow aspects. You're trying to observe them with such clear awareness that they transform into their highest expression. The person who carries shadow rage isn't trying to become someone who never feels anger. They're learning to transform unconscious rage into conscious power, destructive fury into protective boundaries, suppressed aggression into unstoppable determination. The energy itself doesn't disappear. It elevates, it integrates, it becomes a conscious ally instead of an unconscious saboteur. This process requires what Jung called active imagination, but what we might now understand as quantum observation applied to inner states. When you can observe your shadow patterns without immediately trying to fix them, change them, or make them go away, something extraordinary happens. The very act of conscious observation begins to transform their nature. Your awareness becomes the quantum observer that collapses limiting patterns into expanded possibilities. Most people approach their shadow material with the same energy that created it in the first place. They judge it, resist it, try to control it, or attempt to make it disappear. But shadow integration requires a completely different approach. It requires presence instead of resistance, curiosity instead of judgment, acceptance instead of rejection. This doesn't mean you approve of destructive behaviors or become passive about harmful patterns. It means you recognize that these patterns developed for reasons and contain energy that belongs to your wholeness. When you can hold space for your shadow with this kind of conscious presence, it begins to reveal its gifts. The shadow often contains not just your rejected negative traits, but also your rejected positive ones. The power you were told was too much, the creativity that didn't fit conventional molds, the intelligence that made others uncomfortable, the sensitivity that was labeled as weakness, the intuition that was dismissed as illogical. In many cases, your greatest gifts are hiding in your shadow because they were too threatening to the people around you during your formative years. A child with natural leadership abilities might suppress that power if it resulted in punishment or rejection. An individual with deep intuitive gifts might learn to dismiss their knowing if it challenged authority figures. Someone with fierce independence might develop codependent patterns if their autonomy was consistently violated. These shadow gifts often hold the exact qualities you need to manifest your deepest desires. The person trying to create financial abundance might need to reclaim their suppressed power and self-advocacy. The individual seeking authentic love might need to integrate their rejected vulnerability and emotional depth. The one attempting to build a creative career might need to embrace their unconventional thinking and willingness to stand out. This is why traditional manifestation techniques often fail. They're trying to create from a place of lack, attempting to manifest what you think you don't have. But shadow work reveals that you already possess everything you need. It's just been split off, rejected, or pushed into the unconscious where it operates in distorted ways. When you reclaim these shadow aspects, you're not gaining something new. You're remembering something you've always been. The quantum implications of this are staggering. If consciousness creates reality and your consciousness includes both your aware and unaware aspects, then integrating your shadow literally expands your creative capacity. You're no longer trying to manifest from a fraction of your being. You're creating from your full spectrum of consciousness, including the powerful energies you've been unconsciously rejecting. But this integration process reveals something that makes many people uncomfortable. Sometimes your shadow contains desires, motivations, and aspects that don't align with your spiritual image or your idea of who you should be. You might discover ambition when you've identified as humble, selfishness when you've prided yourself on being selfless, anger when you've cultivated a peaceful persona, sexual desires when you've adopted a pure identity. The temptation is to judge these discoveries and push them back into the unconscious. But this judgment is exactly what created the fragmentation in the first place. True shadow integration requires recognizing that all aspects of human nature exist for reasons and contain essential life force energy. Your ambition might be the fuel you need to create the impact you're called to make. Your selfishness might be the healthy self-care you've been denying yourself. Your anger might be the boundaries you've been afraid to establish. This process often reveals that your conscious desires and your shadow desires aren't actually in conflict. They're different expressions of the same core need for wholeness, authenticity, and full self-expression. The person who consciously wants to help others but carries shadow selfishness might discover that taking better care of themselves actually increases their capacity to serve. The individual who desires spiritual growth but harbors material ambitions might find that creating abundance provides the platform for their deeper purpose. Shadow work shows you that you're not trying to choose between your light and your darkness. You're trying to integrate them into a more complete and powerful expression of who you are. This integration creates what Jung called the transcendent function, where opposing forces within your psyche unite to create something greater than the sum of their parts. From a quantum perspective, this transcendent function represents coherence at the deepest levels of your being. When your conscious and unconscious aspects align, when your accepted and rejected parts work together, when your light and shadow integrate, you become a unified field of creative potential. This unified field is what allows for sustained manifestation, timeline shifting, and reality creation that doesn't collapse back into old patterns. The process isn't always linear or comfortable. Shadow integration often happens in cycles, with periods of expansion followed by contraction as your system integrates new levels of awareness. You might experience what feels like setbacks as suppressed material surfaces to be integrated. You might face relationship challenges as you stop playing familiar roles. You might encounter resistance from others who preferred you in your fragmented state. But each cycle of integration makes you stronger, more authentic, and more capable of creating from your true nature rather than from compensatory patterns. You begin to manifest not from a place of trying to prove something or escape something, but from a place of expressing your authentic essence in physical form. This is when quantum shifting becomes not just possible but inevitable, when you're no longer fighting internal wars, when you're no longer broadcasting contradictory frequencies, when you're creating from wholeness instead of fragmentation. The quantum field can finally deliver the experiences that match your integrated state. Your external reality begins to reflect your internal coherence. The relationships you attract mirror your integrated wholeness rather than your fragmented patterns. The opportunities that appear align with your authentic gifts rather than your compensatory strategies. The abundance you create flows from your genuine value rather than your desperate need to prove worthiness. The shadow reveals itself most powerfully in the moments when your manifestation attempts hit invisible walls. You've done everything right according to every technique you've learned. Your visualization is crystal clear. Your emotions are aligned. Your actions are consistent. Yet somehow reality keeps snapping back to familiar patterns like a rubber band returning to its original shape. These moments aren't failures. They're invitations from your shadow to go deeper than surface-level manifestation. Because what's actually happening in these breakthrough attempts is that you're approaching the edges of your comfort zone, the boundaries of your known identity. And at those edges, your shadow stands guard like a sentinel, protecting you from changes that might threaten your psychological survival. Your shadow contains not just rejected aspects of yourself, but also rejected possibilities for your life. Dreams you abandoned because they felt too big. Visions you dismissed because they seemed unrealistic. Desires you suppressed because they didn't match your family's expectations or society's approval. These rejected possibilities carry enormous energy. And when you try to manifest something similar, that rejected energy creates interference in the quantum field. This is why people often find themselves sabotaging opportunities that would give them exactly what they say they want. The conscious mind desires success, but the shadow holds the memory of being criticized for ambition. The heart yearns for love, but the shadow carries the wound of being hurt when vulnerable. The spirit craves freedom, but the shadow remembers the chaos that followed breaking rules. These shadow memories aren't just psychological constructs. They're energetic imprints stored in your cellular memory, your nervous system, your electromagnetic field. When you approach experiences that activate these imprints, your entire being goes into protective mode. Your body tenses, your breathing becomes shallow, your thoughts turn negative, your energy contracts, and contracted energy cannot create expanded realities. But here's where the quantum perspective transforms everything. These shadow imprints aren't permanent fixtures of your being. They're patterns of energy that exist in a particular configuration. And energy patterns can be reorganized through conscious observation and integration. When you learn to witness your shadow responses without being consumed by them, you gain the power to transform them. The key lies in understanding that your shadow patterns developed as intelligent adaptations to circumstances that no longer exist. The child who learned to suppress their joy because it annoyed stressed adults was making a brilliant survival choice. The teenager who developed anxiety around authority figures after being repeatedly criticized was protecting themselves from further harm. The young adult who created walls around their heart after betrayal was ensuring their emotional safety. These adaptations served their purpose perfectly. But now, decades later, they're operating in a completely different context. The stressed adults are gone, but you're still suppressing your joy. The critical authorities are no longer present, but you're still anxious around powerful people. The person who betrayed you is out of your life, but the walls around your heart are still standing. Shadow work is the process of updating these outdated protective mechanisms. It's helping your nervous system understand that you're no longer that child, that teenager, that young adult who needed those particular defenses. You're a grown being with resources, choices, and power that your younger self couldn't even imagine. This updating process happens through what neuroscientists call memory reconsolidation. When you recall a memory while in a calm, resourced state, you can actually change the emotional charge associated with that memory. The factual content remains the same, but the energetic signature transforms. The memory of criticism might shift from carrying shame to carrying wisdom. The memory of betrayal might transform from creating walls to generating discernment. But this process requires tremendous compassion for your younger self and the choices they made. You can't shame yourself into integration. You can't force shadow healing through willpower or positive thinking. You have to approach these wounded aspects of yourself with the same gentle presence you'd offer a frightened child. Your shadow often speaks through your body before it reaches your conscious awareness. Unexplained tension in your shoulders might be carrying suppressed anger. Chronic digestive issues might be reflecting difficulty processing life experiences. Recurring headaches might signal mental overload from trying to control outcomes. These physical symptoms aren't just random health challenges. They're your shadow's way of communicating what needs attention. When you learn to listen to these somatic signals as information rather than problems to be fixed, You gain access to shadow material that might otherwise remain unconscious for years. Your body is constantly giving you feedback about your energetic state, your emotional truth, your level of internal coherence. But most people have learned to ignore these signals or medicate them away instead of receiving their wisdom. The quantum field responds to your entire energetic signature, not just your conscious thoughts. If your body is holding trauma, tension, or unprocessed emotions, that energy is broadcasting into the field continuously. You might be visualizing abundance while your nervous system is broadcasting scarcity. You might be affirming love while your heart is broadcasting protection. You might be intending success while your gut is broadcasting unworthiness. This is why somatic approaches to shadow work can be so powerful for manifestation. When you learn to release trapped energy from your physical form, you literally change your energetic broadcast. When you help your nervous system feel safe with expansion instead of just survival, you create space for new possibilities to emerge. When you clear old emotional charges from your cellular memory, you stop recreating the same patterns unconsciously. But somatic shadow work isn't just about releasing negative energy. It's about reclaiming the life force energy that got bound up in protective patterns. When you free the energy that was locked in chronic muscle tension, you suddenly have more vitality available for creation. When you resolve the emotional charges that were draining your system, you discover reserves of power you didn't know you possessed. Many people discover that their shadow contains not just wounded aspects, but also powerful aspects that were too much for their early environment to handle. The child who was told they were too intense might have suppressed their natural passion and charisma. The teenager who was criticized for being too sensitive might have shut down their empathic gifts. The young adult who was punished for questioning authority might have buried their innovative thinking. These suppressed gifts often hold exactly what you need to create the life you're trying to manifest. The person struggling to build a business might need to reclaim their natural intensity and leadership presence. The individual seeking deeper relationships might need to embrace their sensitivity as a superpower. The one trying to make a creative impact might need to resurrect their willingness to challenge conventional thinking. This is why shadow work often reveals that you're not missing anything you need for manifestation. You already possess every quality, every gift, every capacity required to create your desired reality. It's just that some of these resources have been split off, rejected, or pushed into the unconscious where they operate in distorted ways. The distortion happens because rejected energy doesn't disappear. It goes underground where it expresses itself in compensatory or compulsive ways. Suppressed anger might become passive aggression or people-pleasing. Rejected power might become control issues or victimhood. Hidden sensitivity might become emotional overwhelm or numbness. These distorted expressions actually make manifestation harder because they create internal chaos and external drama. But when you can reclaim these energies in their pure form, they become tremendous assets. Conscious anger becomes healthy boundaries and protective instincts. Integrated power becomes natural leadership and confident action. Embraced sensitivity becomes intuitive wisdom and deep connection. These integrated qualities don't just help with manifestation. They make life richer, more authentic, and more fulfilling. The process of reclaiming shadow gifts often involves grieving what you lost by suppressing them. You might feel sadness about all the years you spent dimming your light to fit in, anger about the ways you were criticized for being authentically yourself, regret about opportunities you missed because you were playing small. This grief isn't a sign that you're doing something wrong. It's a natural part of the integration process. Allowing yourself to feel this grief actually accelerates the healing. When you can honor what was lost, you create space for what was always yours to return. When you can acknowledge the cost of suppression, you develop the motivation to live more authentically. When you can feel the sadness of hiding your gifts, you strengthen your commitment to expressing them fully. Your shadow work becomes a form of archaeology, excavating buried treasures that have been waiting in the darkness for you to remember their value. Each quality you reclaim, each gift you integrate, each aspect you embrace adds to your creative power and manifestation capacity. You're not becoming someone new. You're becoming more completely yourself. This completeness creates what quantum physicists call superposition in your personal field. Just as particles can exist in multiple states simultaneously until observed, you begin to embody multiple potentials simultaneously until you choose which ones to collapse into reality. But instead of choosing from a limited menu of familiar options, you're choosing from the full spectrum of who you are and who you've always been capable of becoming. The shadow work journey reveals that manifestation isn't about acquiring something external. It's about expressing something internal that was always present, but temporarily forgotten, suppressed, or rejected. When you understand this, the entire manifestation paradigm shifts from trying to get something to allowing something to emerge from within your integrated wholeness. This emergence happens naturally when internal resistance dissolves. You stop fighting yourself and start flowing with your authentic nature. You stop trying to force outcomes and start allowing your genuine expression to create natural results. You stop manifesting from lack and start creating from fullness. But the most profound shift happens in your relationship to failure and success. When you're operating from fragmentation, success feels fragile and failure feels catastrophic because your worth is tied to external outcomes. But when you're creating from integration, both success and failure become information, feedback, opportunities for deeper alignment with your authentic path. This shift removes the desperation that often blocks manifestation. You're no longer trying to prove something or escape something through your creations. You're expressing something true about who you are in physical form. This authentic expression carries a frequency that the quantum field can receive clearly, because it's not contaminated by internal contradictions or desperate need. The shadow also reveals why certain manifestation techniques work for some people and not for others. It's not because some people are more gifted or worthy. It's because some people have less shadow interference between their conscious desires and their energetic broadcast. A person who grew up in an environment that celebrated success will have less internal resistance to manifesting abundance than someone who was taught that money is evil or that successful people are greedy. But here's what's fascinating about shadow work and quantum mechanics. The very act of becoming conscious of your shadow patterns begins to neutralize their power over your manifestation abilities. In quantum physics, the observer effect shows us that consciousness changes the behavior of particles simply by witnessing them. The same principle applies to your psychological patterns. When you can observe your shadow responses without being consumed by them, you begin to transform their energetic signature. This transformation doesn't happen through force or willpower. It happens through what Jung called the transcendent function, where opposing forces within your psyche unite to create something greater than the sum of their parts. Your conscious desires and your unconscious fears don't need to be in conflict. They can be integrated into a more complete understanding of what you truly want and why you want it. For example, someone who consciously desires fame but carries shadow shame about being seen might discover that their true desire isn't actually fame itself, but rather the freedom to express their authentic gifts without hiding. The shadow shame isn't blocking their manifestation because it's evil or wrong. It's protecting them from potential criticism or rejection. When they can honor this protective function while also honoring their desire for expression, they can find ways to share their gifts that feel both authentic and safe. This integration process often reveals that your deepest desires and your deepest fears are actually pointing toward the same thing: your authentic self-expression. The person who desperately wants love but fears intimacy isn't experiencing random contradictory impulses. They're experiencing the tension between their soul's desire for connection and their ego's fear of vulnerability. Both responses contain valuable information about what they truly need. Your shadow often contains what psychologists call disowned strengths. Positive qualities that you rejected because they threatened your survival strategy or didn't fit your family system. A child in a chaotic household might suppress their natural joy because it felt inappropriate or unsafe. A teenager in a competitive family might hide their intelligence to avoid triggering jealousy. An adult in a relationship with an insecure partner might dim their confidence to maintain peace. These disowned strengths often hold the exact qualities you need to manifest your desires. The person trying to create a successful business might need to reclaim their suppressed confidence and natural leadership abilities. The individual seeking vibrant health might need to embrace their rejected vitality and zest for life. The one attempting to attract true love might need to integrate their hidden joy and playfulness. But reclaiming these strengths can feel threatening to your established identity and relationships. If you've built your sense of self around being humble, claiming your power might feel arrogant. If you've maintained relationships by being the problem solver, expressing your own needs might feel selfish. If you've gained approval by being quiet and agreeable, speaking your truth might feel dangerous. This is where the quantum perspective becomes essential. You're not just changing your personality or behavior. You're literally shifting the frequency you broadcast into the quantum field. When you integrate a disowned strength, you don't just gain access to that quality. You change your entire energetic signature in ways that attract different experiences, opportunities, and people into your reality. The quantum field responds to authenticity with remarkable precision. When you're expressing your genuine nature, including both your light and shadow aspects, you create what physicists call coherent resonance. This coherence allows the field to deliver experiences that match your true frequency rather than your compensatory behaviors or defensive strategies. But authenticity requires courage because it means risking the disapproval of people who prefer you in your fragmented state. Your family might resist your increased confidence. Your friends might feel uncomfortable with your new boundaries. Your partner might struggle with your enhanced self-worth. These relationship challenges aren't signs that you're doing something wrong. They're evidence that you're changing at such a fundamental level that others can feel the shift in your energy. This is why shadow work often coincides with relationship transitions. As you integrate rejected aspects of yourself, you naturally attract people who can appreciate your wholeness while releasing connections that required you to stay small. This process can feel isolating initially, but it creates space for relationships based on authentic resonance rather than mutual limitation. Your shadow work also reveals why certain types of people or situations keep appearing in your life. The quantum field delivers experiences that match your internal state, including your unconscious patterns. If you carry unhealed anger in your shadow, you'll attract situations that trigger that anger until you learn to integrate it consciously. If you have suppressed grief that needs expression, you'll encounter losses that activate that grief until you can process it fully. These repetitive patterns aren't punishment or bad luck. They're your unconscious mind creating opportunities for integration and healing. Your shadow uses external circumstances to bring internal material to your conscious awareness. The difficult boss who triggers your authority issues is showing you where you need to reclaim your power. The romantic partner who activates your abandonment fears is revealing where you need to develop secure attachment with yourself. When you understand this dynamic, you can work with your shadow proactively instead of reactively. Instead of trying to avoid triggering situations, you can recognize them as invitations for deeper integration. Instead of blaming external circumstances for your problems, you can ask what internal pattern is being reflected back to you. This shift from victim consciousness to creator consciousness is essential for sustained manifestation. The shadow integration process also reveals why positive thinking alone rarely creates lasting change. If you're affirming abundance while carrying unconscious beliefs about your unworthiness, you're essentially arguing with yourself at an energetic level. The quantum field receives mixed signals and delivers mixed results. You might manifest temporary abundance that somehow always gets sabotaged, or partial success that never quite reaches fulfillment. But when you can identify and integrate the shadow beliefs that contradict your conscious desires, your energetic broadcast becomes clear and consistent. Instead of saying, "I am abundant," while feeling unworthy, you might discover that your shadow unworthiness is actually protecting you from becoming like someone you judged. Once you can separate your desire for abundance from your fear of becoming greedy or materialistic, you can manifest wealth without internal contradiction. This process often involves updating your relationship with qualities you've labeled as negative. Greed, when integrated consciously, might become healthy ambition and resource management. Selfishness might transform into necessary self-care and boundary setting. Pride might evolve into appropriate self-appreciation and confidence. These qualities aren't inherently good or bad. They become destructive when they operate unconsciously and beneficial when they're integrated with awareness. Your shadow work becomes a process of reclaiming the full spectrum of human nature as tools for conscious creation rather than unconscious destruction. Every emotion, every impulse, every aspect of your personality contains energy that can either work for you or against you depending on your level of consciousness and integration. The quantum implications of this are profound. When you're no longer rejecting parts of yourself, you're no longer creating internal energy leaks that drain your manifestation power. When you're no longer fighting internal wars, you can direct all your creative force toward your desired outcomes. When you're no longer broadcasting contradictory frequencies, the quantum field can respond to your intentions with clarity and precision. This integration creates what Jung called individuation, the process of becoming who you truly are rather than who you think you should be. Individuation isn't about becoming perfect or eliminating all your challenges. It's about becoming whole, authentic, and aligned with your deepest nature. This wholeness naturally creates the conditions for effortless manifestation because you're no longer working against yourself. The shadow work journey often involves several distinct phases. First comes awareness, recognizing the patterns and behaviors that have been operating unconsciously. Then comes acceptance, learning to witness these patterns without immediate judgment or attempts to change them. Next is integration, finding ways to consciously work with these energies rather than being driven by them unconsciously. Each phase brings its own challenges and gifts. The awareness phase can be uncomfortable as you recognize how much of your behavior has been unconsciously driven. The acceptance phase requires tremendous compassion for your survival strategies and protective mechanisms. The integration phase demands creativity and courage as you learn new ways of being that honor both your growth edge and your safety needs. But with each phase of integration, your manifestation abilities expand exponentially. You gain access to energy that was previously locked in internal conflict. You develop clarity about what you truly want versus what you think you should want. You create space for desires and possibilities that were previously blocked by unconscious resistance. The journey also reveals that shadow work isn't a one-time process, but an ongoing relationship with your unconscious material as it continues to surface throughout your life. Each new level of success, each relationship transition, each life stage brings new shadow material to the surface for integration. This isn't a sign of failure or regression. It's evidence that you're continuing to grow and expand beyond your previous limitations. As you develop skill in shadow work, you begin to welcome these emergent cycles rather than resist them. You recognize that each piece of shadow material that surfaces is actually a gift, offering you access to more of your authentic power and creative potential. You learn to see psychological challenges not as problems to be solved, but as opportunities for deeper integration and expanded manifestation abilities. This ongoing relationship with your shadow transforms not just your ability to create external results, but your entire experience of being alive. You become more comfortable with the full spectrum of human experience, more resilient in the face of challenges, more authentic in your relationships, and more aligned with your true purpose and calling. The quantum field responds to this authenticity by delivering experiences that match your integrated wholeness rather than your fragmented patterns. You begin to attract opportunities that utilize your full range of gifts, relationships that appreciate your complete self, and circumstances that support your continued growth and expression. But perhaps most importantly, you discover fulfilled. The integration of your shadow reveals that wholeness itself is the source of joy, that you don't need to manifest a different life to be happy in meaning and satisfaction you've been seeking through external achievements. When you're no longer at war with yourself, when you're no longer rejecting essential aspects of your nature, when you're creating from authentic expression rather than compensatory need, life becomes inherently fulfilling regardless of specific outcomes. This doesn't mean you stop having desires or goals. It means your desires arise from fullness rather than emptiness, from authentic expression rather than desperate need. These desires carry a different energetic signature that the quantum field can receive and respond to much more effectively than desires born from lack or compensation. This shift from creating from emptiness to creating from fullness fundamentally changes how manifestation unfolds in your life. When you're operating from integrated wholeness, you're no longer trying to fill a void or escape a painful reality. You're expressing something authentic that wants to emerge through you. This expression carries a frequency of completion rather than desperation, of abundance rather than lack, of flow rather than force. The quantum field recognizes this frequency immediately. Instead of mixed signals created by internal contradiction, you're broadcasting a clear, coherent message about what you're ready to experience and express. Your shadow has been transformed from an unconscious saboteur into a conscious ally, contributing its unique gifts to your creative process rather than undermining it from the depths of your unconscious. But here's where the journey takes an unexpected turn. As you integrate more of your shadow material, you begin to realize that the very concept of manifestation as acquiring something external starts to feel incomplete. You discover that what you thought you wanted was often a symbol for something deeper. something that could only be accessed through internal integration rather than external achievement. The person who desperately wanted wealth might discover that money was a symbol for security, and that true security comes from trusting their ability to create value in the world. The individual who craved fame might realize that recognition was a symbol for being seen and valued, something that could only happen when they learned to see and value themselves fully. The one who sought perfect health might understand that vitality was a symbol for aliveness, which required embracing their full emotional spectrum rather than just the comfortable feelings. This doesn't mean external desires become irrelevant. It means they become expressions of internal realities rather than compensations for internal lacks. When you want wealth from a place of integrated wholeness, you're not trying to prove your worth or escape insecurity. You're creating abundance as a natural expression of your inherent value and creative capacity. This intention carries a completely different energetic signature than desire born from fear or inadequacy. Your shadow work reveals that many of your deepest desires have been distorted by the very patterns that created your shadow in the first place. If you learned that love was conditional on performance, you might chase success as a way to earn affection rather than as authentic expression. If you absorbed messages about your inadequacy, you might seek achievement to prove your worth rather than to contribute your gifts. If you internalized beliefs about scarcity, you might pursue abundance from desperation rather than from natural creative flow. But as you integrate these shadow patterns, your desires begin to purify themselves. You start wanting things for cleaner reasons. Success becomes about contribution rather than compensation. Relationships become about connection rather than validation. Abundance becomes about flow rather than hoarding. Health becomes about vitality rather than fear of death. These purified desires manifest much more easily because they're aligned with the natural flow of creative energy rather than fighting against it. When you want something because it allows you to express your authentic nature more fully, the universe conspires to support that expression. When you desire experiences that enhance your ability to contribute your gifts, opportunities align to make that contribution possible. The shadow integration process also reveals why certain manifestation attempts have felt forced or effortful in the past. When you're trying to create something that your shadow believes you don't deserve, can't handle, or shouldn't have, you're essentially trying to manifest against internal resistance. It's like trying to drive with the emergency brake engaged. You might make some progress, but it requires enormous effort and often results in breakdown or burnout. But when your conscious desires and unconscious beliefs align through shadow work, manifestation becomes as natural as breathing. You're no longer overriding internal resistance. You're creating from internal coherence. The energy that was previously locked in conflict becomes available for creative expression. The quantum field can respond to your clear intention without interference from contradictory unconscious programming. This alignment also changes your relationship with timing and divine orchestration. When you're creating from desperation or compensation, you tend to be impatient, forcing outcomes according to your timeline because you need the external result to feel okay internally. But when you're manifesting from wholeness, you can trust the natural timing of emergence because you're already okay regardless of when or how your desires manifest. This trust allows for what mystics call surrender, but what quantum physics might describe as allowing the field to organize around your intention in the most efficient way possible. Instead of micromanaging the process, you set your intention clearly and then remain open to how the universe wants to deliver it. Often, the results exceed your expectations because the field has access to possibilities you couldn't imagine from your limited perspective. Your shadow work becomes a form of quantum archaeology, excavating the buried potentials that have been waiting in your unconscious for the right conditions to emerge. Each integrated aspect doesn't just heal a wound, it reveals a gift. Each reclaimed projection doesn't just resolve a pattern, it unlocks creative capacity. Each embraced darkness doesn't just eliminate a problem, it illuminates previously hidden resources. This process reveals that your psyche is designed for wholeness, and that fragmentation is always temporary, no matter how long it has persisted. Your authentic nature is integration, coherence, and creative expression. The splitting that created your shadow was a survival adaptation that served its purpose, but was never meant to be permanent. As you mature psychologically and spiritually, the drive toward wholeness becomes irresistible. But integration isn't about returning to some previous state of innocence or perfection. It's about including everything you've experienced, learned, and become in a more complete expression of who you are. Your wounds become wisdom. Your defenses become discernment. Your survival strategies become conscious tools that you can choose to use or not use depending on the situation. This inclusive approach to healing transforms not just your manifestation abilities, but your entire worldview. You stop seeing aspects of yourself, other people, or life circumstances as purely positive or negative. Everything becomes information, energy, potential that can be worked with consciously. This perspective eliminates the internal warfare that consumes so much creative energy and opens space for unprecedented levels of manifestation power. The quantum field operates through principles of resonance, coherence, and information. When your internal field becomes coherent through shadow integration, you naturally resonate with coherent possibilities in the external quantum field. When your information system becomes clear through psychological integration, you can receive and interpret feedback from the universe more accurately. When your energetic signature becomes authentic through embracing your wholeness, you attract experiences that match your true nature rather than your compensatory patterns. But perhaps the most profound shift happens in your relationship with uncertainty and the unknown. When you're operating from fragmentation, uncertainty feels threatening because your survival strategies require predictability and control. But when you're creating from integration, uncertainty becomes exciting because it represents infinite potential waiting to be explored and expressed. This comfort with uncertainty is essential for quantum manifestation because the quantum realm is inherently uncertain. Particles exist in superposition, multiple states simultaneously, until consciousness collapses them into specific realities. Your ability to remain centered and creative in the face of uncertainty determines how skillfully you can work with quantum possibilities. Shadow work develops this capacity by helping you become comfortable with internal uncertainty, with not knowing exactly who you are or what you're capable of until you explore and express different aspects of your nature. As you learn to navigate your inner mystery with curiosity rather than fear, you develop the psychological flexibility needed to dance with external mystery and quantum potentials. The integration of your shadow isn't just psychological healing, it's quantum activation. When you stop broadcasting contradictory frequencies, when you reclaim the disowned aspects of your being, when you transform internal warfare into internal coherence, you become a unified field of creative potential that the quantum realm can finally work with instead of against. This is why every manifestation technique you've tried has fallen short, not because you lacked faith or did something wrong, but because you were trying to create from a fraction of your being while the rest remained hidden in the shadows. unconsciously sabotaging every attempt at transformation. Carl Jung understood what modern manifestation teachers have forgotten. Wholeness, not perfection, is the key to conscious creation. Your shadow isn't your enemy. It's your untapped power source waiting to be integrated and expressed as part of your authentic magnificence. The quantum field has been waiting for you to become whole so it can deliver the reality that matches your integrated truth rather than your fragmented hopes. Your timeline shift begins the moment you stop rejecting yourself and start embracing the totality of who you are.